Kelvin, why don't you come and join me? We will skip the panel at the end. אנחנו נדלג על הפאנל, אתם תשאלו אותנו שאלות אם תרצו תוך כדי. And for this one, I will do it all in English because we will probably talk between us as well. We've covered monitoring so far, right? How can we see data? How can we react? And Tamir briefly touched this. We want to prevent that. We want to prevent that by doing some synthetic things. But can we actually prevent more things even a lot before they happen? Can we actually prevent things on different areas or on early stages? So that's what this topic is going to be. And we'll start with your permission, or with not, I don't really care, with, is that, no, that's the QAA, so no QAA. This one. So we'll start with security. We haven't spoken about security so far. This is the landscape of different types of all security products available. It's blurred because I had to minimize it. You can see IoT, application security, mobile, messaging, whatever. So a lot of products, but maybe we can actually segment them differently. So let's use this diagram. So on the bottom row, that's plain IT, right? Servers, databases, networks, whatever. The upper row, the applications themselves, okay? These are the applications we develop. These are the applications we are buying. They are all running. And from left to right, that's our software development lifecycle. Okay, so that would be our development. Here we're on production. So if we look at those lot of brands and a lot of products, security products, we're fully covered in the IT infrastructure, right? Firewalls, whatever. In development, we're probably almost covered because we can do static code analysis. We can search for things. We can run different scans every release, every compilation, whatever. Do we have some vulnerabilities or so? Actually didn't operate my stopwatch. So yeah, so I'll know when it is. But as we go to production, we don't really have any visibility, right? We have our traditional perimeter tooling. We have firewalls preventing doing things, right? But it's global, and we need to maintain that. So what we are now looking for is something to fill out the gap and help us with applications in production. Guess what? Through all this day, we spoke about Dynatrace in production, right? Seeing all transactions, seeing whatever is in there, getting all data. And as we look into the organizations, and we look at the security guys, the dev guys, the operations guys, so security guys will ask, are we vulnerable? Are we affected? Dev will ask or provide answers, where and how are we affected, right? And operations would be, okay, what is the actual impact on my production environment? And if we take these questions back to the same chart on applications, so on dev, we said we're covered, right? But that's where Dynatrace can provide us a lot of answers because we see all data. One agent is already seeing which components are being used, which libraries, how they are being used, okay? And they can immediately say, just like Tamir said, and just like Asa said, are we impacted by a specific problem? So it's not that much different, right? And let me give you an example. Log4Shell. Okay, last December, there's an error here, I know. On December 10th, that was Friday morning at, not this one, sorry, 12:40 a.m., so 40 minutes after midnight, there was a vulnerability listed on Log4Shell in GitHub. At 10:15 a.m., it was listed and got its numerator, its CVE, on the National Vulnerability Database, or whatever NVD means, right? It was listed on those vendors, for example, Snyk, who is our partner in this case, at 10:45. Dynatrace customers are getting information from the Snyk repository about vulnerabilities every 5 minutes. So at 10:50, it was then brought to the environment. And at 11:05, our customers got a complete report saying, hey, you're affected on these and these and these processes due to the Log4Shell. Remember, that's Friday morning, before you're leaving to your weekend. And I know, who was affected here by Log4Shell? Okay, just an example, Eran. When you were affected, how long did it take you to understand where and if you're affected? 4 days. Not too bad, right? 4 days. Dynatrace customers got it immediately, okay? Basically, if we want to be very strict, it took us 50 minutes to understand that we are impacted on a specific place. But that's not enough, okay? We strive for more. We actually want to increase our coverage, because what will happen if, for example, the vulnerability is in our code, and it's not just something that is known. So are we covered by the unknown vulnerabilities? And 50 minutes, well, it's 44 days to understand where we're impacted, and then additional few days to replace all software, and we're still vulnerable on this time. So what do we do then? And that's where Dynatrace, one agent, is now providing real-time application protection. For now, it's for Java-based applications, but it will be released soon also on other technologies. So let me just demo this quickly. So I have this insecure banking application. That was the name. If you don't believe me that it works, so I'll just do that. Okay, you see I have data. I don't want to learn the password, so seeing everything, right? So let's go log out. And what I'll want to do is try and do SQL injection. Okay, it's not that I'm using a known vulnerability. I'm trying to penetrate my application. So I'll do this. Right, okay, I didn't succeed. But let's see what's happening in Dynatrace. So what I'll do, I'll go to the vulnerabilities. Okay, so these are the different vulnerabilities that we can see being covered, but I actually want to look at something else. I actually want to look at the attacks. So let me Refresh that. And look at that. That was saying there was an attack. Okay? Here's the attack. Here's the vulnerability. You had SQL injection. Someone tried to do the SQL injection. Here are the details. So it started here, because I'm on localhost, so it is using my IP address, but otherwise I could have seen the exact IP address of the user who tried to attack me. But I know exactly where it was executed, okay? It's on line 35 in this function, and here's the exact syntax data that I was trying to run. But we haven't prevented anything, right? That's only because we're currently set up to do monitoring. I can then change that and tell Dynatrace globally or specifically on this endpoint, I want to now protect my applications. And then when I'll go and do this again, and let's just change that. Okay, Dynatrace day. It was then blocked. And if you look right here, Dynatrace blocked it. There was SQL injection attack. We stopped it. We prevented it. We've created a problem, an alert that was sent to the CISO. And we're now actually completely covered by that. So if I'll go back to attacks, it's now blue here, right? So this was now blocked. And when I'm looking at each vulnerability, whatever the vulnerability is, okay, let's look at that. I have the whole details about that. What is the vulnerability? Were there things here so I can see additional attempts, maybe from different users that I was looking. I could see where I'm being impacted, okay? So you can see those services and those, it's on a specific host. We're actually trying to access certain database, all without doing nothing, just with the one agent. So if we looked at that, and we prevented that, remember Pedro's presentation about log management, one of the use cases, forensics. So now it would be easy using DQL and Grail to do quick query. Let's see, is it a new one or did it happen before? Very quickly, we can analyze those things and get the data. And again, Pedro referred to the timing, 2 petabyte on 2.4 seconds. That's what it took. So to cover that, our prevention could be, in terms of Dynatrace runtime, the application security, still provided by the same one agent, runtime vulnerability assessment. We don't need to scan it because we know how you are using your software. You're using a certain function in a certain way, in a specific architecture, because Log4Shell was a simple one, but Spring4Shell, for example, was only relevant if you're using Java 9 in a certain way. Since we're seeing the transactions, we were able to provide true positives, not false positives, and reduce the time. Runtime application protection, you saw that, and the internal forensics, right? So that would be on security. Yep. But what about applications? No, not me, see? Yeah.
So, well, this has just been an absolutely amazing day. So we spoke a lot about observability, and I mean, you just gave us an example right now, Gil, about preventing right?
Right.
Preventing attacks, preventing vulnerabilities from entering different stages of your environment, maybe staging, pre-production, or even production. And most situations, you would probably start your observability journey in production, but it doesn't have to just start in production. It could happen in development, staging, pre-prod, and you can actually bring these vulnerabilities closer towards development. But when we start looking at that preventative aspect, we do know that awareness and being able to measure is important. So we just spoke about today around how Dynatrace allows you to detect problems across multitudes of areas. May have been data, log files, virtual infrastructure, and so much more. Then a lot of us talk about the methodology of AR operations. Now what's interesting there is usually that sits with your site reliability engineers, looking to auto-remediate, looking to automate scenarios and processes in production. It's not just about rolling back our code, it could also be about compliance, including that with, for example, an application that's being delivered. But if you're doing that, I've got a question, because I've seen this so many times and it's actually quite scary. All my customers and prospects that start on an AIOps strategy don't know what to automate, because there's thousands of playbooks, there's thousands of components, and they go on a project for over a year before they're actually able to measure the value that AIOps brings to the business. And this is interesting. So how do we start? We start with what we've already heard today on SLOs. We spoke about how you can visualize your SLOs, come into an agreement with the different stakeholders, and those stakeholders include your site reliability engineers looking at automating for AI operations. But it also includes all your developers, your release managers, as well as your DevOps engineers who are really focusing on automating and speeding up how you release software in production. And right in the middle is all of us working towards meeting those business goals, which we can measure using service level objectives. So we touched on being able to visualize that statically in a dashboard, but we can go so much further than that, and there's so many things we'd like to talk to you about today, but I think we're going to just limit it to just how we can auto-communicate, right? Auto-communicate these SLOs, not just in production on a dashboard, but how do we give you a self-service quality gate with automated SLOs? This is a challenge we've seen, and we're going to just address this one challenge to show you how you can use this very easily in your environments, in staging, pre-production, and if you want to, even production, just to help you start aligning those business goals across your environments as a self-service. All right, let me show you what this is going to look like. Okay, so I'm just going to go into my demo environment very quickly here, and we'll find it. It should be the first one. There we go.
Not this one?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, that's one.
Let's go there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is one of our demo environments in Dynatrace, and we're utilizing Dynatrace Cloud Automation, and this is my dashboard with certain SLOs that were important to me. And what I'm going to do is also show you what this looks like very quickly, just to trigger off a release. There's a section called Orchestration Projects in Dynatrace where you can actually link to a cloud automation environment. There we go, that's my environment. And all I'm going to do very quickly, just because it takes a few seconds, I'm just going to select my projects, my Dynatrace projects, where most of you know about Easy Travel. We've spoken about it from today. You installed it actually during the session. How cool was that? And now we actually got a quality gate that we've defined very easily, literally 2 or 3 steps. And all I'm going to do is trigger this evaluation in Dynatrace on my Easy Travel services.
Kelvin, while you're typing in, maybe for me just to explain for a second what people are seeing. So Dynatrace developed an open source project called Captain. Okay, what is Captain? Captain is an application lifecycle orchestration engine. It's now, since it's open source, it's in the incubating stage. If you go to the CNCF website, and if you remember the image that I showed you about the different technologies, it now sits next to Jenkins. So that's the area of what we're doing. It has a lot of things to do. It is aiming to loosen up the tightly coupling integration. So today, when we speak about automation, we're actually writing scripts that invoke JMeter, go and do that, et cetera, et cetera. One of the purposes in Captain was to eliminate that and work through different events. What we are showing you right now is just a very small piece of that is working on quality gates. What is quality gates? Is our ability to be able, at certain stages, to say, hey, I now want to measure my quality. So for example, if Ariel, when you run performance tests, you now go and search for a lot of dashboards and a lot of charts to see if things are working fine or not, right? And it takes you time. The goal here is to say, let's shorten up the time, and Kelvin will probably give an example of what's happening. But if we spoke about SLOs, feel free to interrupt whenever you want and whenever you're ready, right? So when we speak on SLOs, what is an SLO, right? What is service level objectives? We define what we want to measure, right? And we define what is our expected goal and where should be warned about, right? That's what we're doing. So what Captain is doing.
So Gil, that was amazing, because the whole sessions we were talking about these actual static SLOs, right? We spoke about, let's visualize. These are our goals on a dashboard. And we can actually visualize, are we meeting those goals? And we can say, yes, are we happy with those goals? But how do we automate that into the rest of the process? And what you showed us here now, Gil, is this actual quality gate where all we've done is put in this dashboard. It can be GitHub spaced as well. So for those of you that want to do everything as code, SLOs as code, you can do that. But sometimes we're not always ready to do that in an organization. We're not running DevOps pipelines. You can still make use of this today without having to be a DevOps engineer. And you can start bringing these SLOs closer to your different stages for your software delivery.
So what we're seeing here is we're seeing that we were received a score, right, of 77.77. But actually, Kelvin, you said that we don't really need to be developers, okay? So we're now measuring the service performance, or okay, so that's the service level. And if we scroll down, we see a lot of things, right? So you can see where we failed, for example, on this one. Okay, it's now 87, and we were supposed to see 89, 99. And actually, when we define those quality gates, we can actually define what is the change compared to our last test or our last 3 tests. Not just now, are we under 50 milliseconds, but have we degraded by not more than 5% over the last 3 versions, right? And here you can see all of those colors failing or not failing. But Kelvin, if now we want to change that and add a new measurement, how easy it is to do this?
Well, that's actually a really good question there, Gil. So I'm going to take us back to our Dynatrace environments. There's our dashboard. And let's use an example, right? Before we've created our SLOs, we decided to put it on our dashboard. And this is just one of those dashboards. But I've also got a link here to one of our problems. And I'm just going to give you an example of what we typically see when we have SLOs in our environments. So here we got, for example, let me just grab a different problem here. Okay, so when we have problems in production, which we all have with, when you're monitoring your environments, you can also link your SLOs to Dynatrace. And what's beautiful about that is that linking happens automatically. So when you create your SLOs on your dashboards, Dynatrace will automatically show us how a problem has affected your actual SLOs. So here we go, here's a problem, business impact. the deployments events that we can see in this situation happening from ServiceNow. And all I want to know though is how did this problem affect my service level objectives that were important to me? There we go. So now I've gone into my SLOs and have a look at that, Gil. We got that service performance check destination SLO, which has dropped by 58%. And that's like, well, that's scary, right? This is still production. That's not what I want to see in my environment. But at least I'm aware and I'm measuring it, that there's a problem. And it's affecting my goals towards the business. Now
yeah, but can we actually test that and add it to our quality gates?
Yeah, and we can prevent it, right? Let's shift it further towards staging. So there we go. Just remember that service performance check destination. We go back to our dashboard. Okay, there's our check destination here as well. And while we add it, we might as well also add the security SLO as well. Let's add that in here. There we go, here we go. We got a vulnerability tolerance SLO where we don't want to have more than 2 vulnerabilities either in our production environments. So there's that. Here is our check destination SLO as well. And that's all we've done on our dashboard. Now, all we can do is go back to our cloud automation and we can trigger that release. So here we can see we haven't got that vulnerability SLO, for example. And we go back and we trigger a new sequence.
So the only thing Kelvin did right now is just changing a dashboard. Now think about what this means. This means that we talk about team collaboration. It means, and Tamir spoke about speaking to business owners, getting information from them. This means that actually we can give permissions to our business users to modify our quality gate dashboard and add directly their business goals on there. And then the dev guys can do this. And then the IT guys can say, well, my condition is that you need to work not more than 5% on the CPU, et cetera, et cetera. So we can delegate, again, more capabilities towards greater business application being running without worrying and without requiring any technical capabilities from the people, right? Obviously, yes, since this is all Git-based, and I'll show you in a minute one aspect of that, we can change, obviously, the files and run files, but all we did here is just change a dashboard. So, did you add?
So we go to the bottom here, and you actually see that log4j.
Wait, I'm hiding that, so I'll stand behind you.
So that's it. Then you'll actually see that log4j vulnerability that we can see here. It hasn't got data at the moment through while we're running it, so there's no vulnerabilities of log4j there, but there is our SLO part of our evaluation on our quality gates. And all we had to do was add it to our dashboard.
Yeah, good. So, but if we look at that, so great capability, what's required to get started, right? We spoke about automation, how complicated it is to do things. So the only thing we need to do, again, we're speaking about automation through the whole day. So let me just go here and use, first of all, I'll open up my GitOps project so that you'll believe me it's running. So we're backing up automatically everything to Git, okay? All of the definitions that we're doing in the software is being written here. We can change it, it's being pulled back. GitOps by the book. So we have different services that we're currently monitoring. So there's different terms, so project and then a sequence, etc., etc. What I'll do a simple thing. So if we'll go to our tenant, and we look at our Dynatrace project, we're currently covering 6 services, right? What I'll do, I'll go to one of our services. Let's take that. Let's take booking service. All I need to do is now add 2 tags. This is going to be a captain managed. That's one. And the other one would be captain service, and I'll call it D-Day booking service, right? That's it. That's the only thing I've done. And if we look at that, within a minute, it will appear here. Because the integration between cloud automation and Dynatrace is already built in there. We are looking, we're searching for these tags, we're bringing that. It will be less than that. And while I'm doing that, I'll also bring out my dashboard. So it would be this SLO dashboard. So you see at the top here, this is what is instructing Captain, utilizing the REST API, what to do. So he's now looking for Project Dynatrace for a service called Easy Travel Customer Frontend on the stage of a quality gate. Remember, that's what Kelvin has ran. And in here, we have, on the above, we have some information saying, well, I want to, that's the name of the SLI, because I'm using a chart, I'm not using a service level objective. I want it to pass whenever my number of validations is more than 60, when a warning is over 10, et cetera, et cetera. I can even define that this could be a critical measurement, so even if it's the only one that is failing, it should fail the whole quality gate, okay? So in here, we should now be able to see 7 services. And as we go here even, look at that. We have D-Day booking service already added. So it's a closed loop thing that what I can do is actually say in this dashboard, let's just change that. D-Day booking service, right? That's it. Go to Cloud Automation, look at the services. So here's my D-Day booking service. Trigger an evaluation. Oh, sorry, that was. Yeah, go here. This one. Yeah. Okay. Stage, that's a quality gate. Remember, that's what it said on the writing. We're talking about, let's say, yeah, and then yeah, I can 5 minutes, I can change that. I can even add some metadata. By the way, this doesn't need to be run from the UI. We have a CLI that could be a REST command. And then we will see here in just a second, you see it's now being processing. We'll see an evaluation, quality gate. That easy, that how we can actually go ahead and prevent things. So you want to wrap this thing, yeah? While it runs. So
Awesome. So that was just one of those sequences, right, Gil? Was a quality gate. It was a great example because that's something you guys can start off today, is using the quality gates to help you bring those evaluations closer to pre-prod. And even if you're just using it for yourself, so understand the weighting. But Captain and Dynatrace Cloud Automation doesn't only provide sequences that are quality gate based. You can trigger off deployments, monitoring as configuration. You can execute any of your DevOps tools in the orchestration framework of Dynatrace Cloud Automation. What we will do, very similar to what Gil showed us now, is we will take that configuration, even though we separate the areas of concerns between the configuration of your SREs, your configuration, all declarative in YAML from your DevOps engineers, and then your developer only needs to release the feature in that pipeline. But if you're changing your tooling, like for example, moving from JMeter to Selenium, you don't break your entire pipeline, you're only affecting that one piece of configuration. So we bring that all together, and we allow you to either connect the tools in our own orchestration, or you can use your own DevOps pipelines today, like AWS Code Pipeline or Jenkins, and so many more, and just trigger cloud automation and consume the quality gates as a self-service in your existing pipeline architecture.
Kelvin, can you just take us through, no, this one. Just take us the example of the benefit. For example, you have an example of a customer and how much time was saved, right, in one of your next slide, because I see people are starting to get hungry, and we spoke about how easy it is. Exactly this one.
So we've got a customer from the US as well as two in South Africa that only use Dynatrace Cloud Automation for the Quality Gate service. They had an actual example of utilizing the Quality Gates purely for testing. Why? They were doing manual testing, some automated testing, and they still measured and managed all the reports manually. So Dynatrace, when you use the cloud automation, the Quality Gates, they dropped it from 32 hours down to 5 minutes with automated evaluation. This is great. As a developer, you can release software at 4 p.m., go home, and you get the answer before you have to go through the whole team. That's the one situation, and in this situation, it's 400 times reduction in performance with automated quality gates. So that's one example. And then the last one is really not even automating. You know, if you're not ready to automate, so let's say you aren't, you can still use those quality gates purely as a gate as you're deploying into production. Even if it's manual deployments, you can still pick up issues that will not, get to production way before. And we've had a situation with that with a few of our customers that are utilizing this specific example.
So based on your experience, where should they start?
I believe enable the release inventory. We didn't get a chance to show that to you today. That's one area that we missed. But you can centralize your releases from Jenkins, Code Pipeline, Azure DevOps. And Dynatrace will give you a single pane of glass of all your releases and show you which vulnerabilities were introduced and which problems were introduced per release. Very cool. Takes 5 minutes to enable this. I do believe that you must start creating SLOs based on business goals. Why? You're going to be automating for days if we don't isolate the SLOs that actually drive business goals. Even if it's user-centric, service-centric, that focus on, let's say, 10 or 11 key SLOs, validate that with the stakeholders, that we're all in agreement, and then everything else becomes easy. Dynatrace will automatically visualize the problems for you, will show you the affected SLOs when problems happen in your environments, and then you can start using those automatic service level objective quality gates in production. Then you got it as a self-service that you can offer to pre-prod, staging, and the different teams across your organization. And that to me would be the quickest way to start this journey.
Great. Thank you very much. I see people are almost eating us, so I will just finish with this one slide because we will skip the Q&A. So obviously we are all here. 2 slides actually. So one is that we've covered a lot of למה אני מדבר באנגלית? כבר באוטומט. כיסינו הרבה מאוד נושאים. היה מאוד מאתגר להכניס את זה למצגות של 20 דקות. נכשלנו בכל המצגות שלנו. אני מודה עליי. סליחה, אדר. מזל שאלוהים משלמת לי את המשכורת. אנחנו נעשה שולחנות עגולים, אנחנו נתחיל לפרסם אותם. עכשיו, אם איזשהו נושא כזה או אחר מעניין אתכם, אנחנו גם נשלח לכם ב-SMS. אבל יש פה דף משוב, אנחנו נשאיר פה את ה-QR קוד, אנחנו נשמח לשמוע מכם מה חשבתם על היום הזה, מה מעניין אתכם, אם תרצו על מה אנחנו רוצים לעשות. תודה שבאתם. שנה הבאה? אדר, שנה הבאה יש? כן? בתיאבון חברים, אנחנו עדיין כאן לשאלות.